Okay, we welcome everyone tonight to our regular city council meeting, Tuesday, September 13th. And we are grateful that we have a Pledge of Allegiance given by Elijah Harris, and she will lead us in that Pledge of Allegiance, after which we will have an opening prayer from Ken Olson.
Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful together this evening as neighbors and friends. We express our love unto Thee and unto Jesus Christ, grateful to live in this beautiful land of America and this special city of Bountiful. Grateful for those that provide their service to keep the community together and improve it. And we pray a blessing upon them, that tonight's business will go as they hope it will go, and they can be efficient and get a lot accomplished. We're grateful for their service. We're grateful for the land of America and pray that the leaders of the various states and the nation will be inspired and promote good values. Now we ask Thy Spirit to reside here this night and give thanks for all Thou dost for us, especially tonight for this moisture. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you so much, Ken, for being here tonight and for that prayer. And thank you, Elijah, for that Pledge of Allegiance. We will now have our public comment period. Each person is allowed 2 minutes to say anything you'd like to say. If you'd like to comment, please state your name and your address, and we'll hear from you now.
And by now, you probably know my name and address. It's Jack Holt, 1201 East, 700 North. I wrote a memo to the council last week and saying that I thought you ought to seek more science into in defining what you were meaning by aesthetics and so forth. I apologize for that letter in the sense that implied funding, and my intent was it would not imply funding. So to give you an idea, I talked to Dr. Kelly Kopp. She's the director of Water Efficient Landscape Center at the University, or Utah State University, and she said she would be glad to visit with the council. I also talked with the Department of Water Resources, a gal by the name of Shelby Erickson, and asked if Dr. Kirshner, Katria, I butchered his name, sorry, who wrote a study on climate change, water resources, and potential adaptation strategies, and it was published in March 2020. He is a Department of Water Resources, and I think they could help you, and the only thing I can think of is maybe mileage and lunch that you would have to pay for. And my idea is, I think the aesthetics piece of it is needs to be more well-defined with science background behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else? Okay, we will now, do we have we have someone from our youth council. Excellent. Okay, will you come and introduce yourself?
Is our Olivia Springer with us?
Yes, so I'm Olivia Springer, and I am the city recorder for BCYC. We just wanted to update you guys on the activities we had this August. Our members had the opportunity to clean up the trash and repaint over the graffiti up at the B. We also assisted the Sons of the Utah Pioneers to clean up the Kimball Mill on Orchard Drive. And we had a total of 47 man-hours of service to Bountiful in August. We also have some fun upcoming events. On September 16th, which is this Friday, BCYC is hosting a teen event at North Canyon Park at 8:30. It's going to be a presentation for the youth by the Youth Council and the Bountiful Chief of Police, and it's on the suicide prevention resources. And then after we have the presentation, we'll have a game of Capture the Flag. And it's all youth 12 to 18 in Bountiful. Are there any questions? Okay, great. If anybody has any ideas or opportunities, please let Jessie Bell know, and that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will now have our council reports, and we will start with you, Councilman Bell. Do you have a report tonight?
I do. So a couple things. We just had our day of service on Saturday, and a big part of that was the food pantry. I just wanted to share that the food pantry collected 57,000 pounds of food, and the goal was 40,000. So we did well there, and they received $3,906 in cash donations, which is very much in need for those items that are don't store on the shelf so well. And then the other item is this Saturday is the Emergency Preparedness Fair, and it will be held at the Megaplex Theater in Centerville, and that's from 9 to 4. It's a free event, and there's all kinds of wonderful things there, and all of us that want to be prepared when the emergency hits, I think would be well served by attending that. And there's been so much effort to go to make that happen. A lot of wonderful local sponsors, and then Casey Bowen has spent a lot of hours in doing making that happen. Appreciate his time there. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bradshaw.
Just wanted to alert the council that you may want to put October 4th on your calendar. That would be like the day before the League of Cities and Towns Conference. The Utah Outdoor Adventure Commission is inviting local governments to be part of regional stakeholder meetings on outdoor recreation planning. And we're in the Wasatch region, and that October 4th date is the date for our region's meeting. It will be in Salt Lake City at the Petzl North American headquarters, which is in West Valley on Decker Lake Drive. So if you're free and interested in attending, they're looking for feedback from cities and counties, and also from our staff. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Higginson.
Nothing this evening. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilwoman Segura Bar. Councilwoman Price Hewish.
Kind of along the same lines as Councilwoman Bradshaw was mentioning, tomorrow, I don't know if anyone can make this, but the Wasatch Front Regional Council is hosting the Utah Pedestrian Summit at Utah Valley Convention Center from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I am planning on attending, and I will look forward to kind of returning and reporting on things that I learn and hear about at that conference tomorrow.
Thank you so much. I'll just give a few quick items as well. We have our annual business symposium tomorrow morning here at City Hall. So for all Bountiful businesses, starting at 7:30 until 10 a.m., we'll be hosting all Bountiful businesses to come, network, hear a speaker, and get a city update. So we encourage anyone with any ties to Bountiful businesses to come for that. Also, I'm on the South Davis Metro Fire Board, and this is Fire Prevention Week. And so there are activities this week. Today looks like it's almost over, but today in North Salt Lake at the fire station from 6 to 8. Tomorrow in Centerville from 6 to 8, and Thursday here in Bountiful at the fire station on 200 South, there will be activities for fire prevention awareness and fire trucks for kids and activities. So everyone's invited to that. And then also just wanted to let people know that Freedom's Light Foundation has an activity this week for Constitution Days, and it's Thursday through Saturday at Bountiful Park, and you'll see all the flags out, and they have reenactments from Thomas Jefferson and General Washington, and it's an amazing, great educational opportunity, and it's free to the public, and so that will be happening this Thursday through Saturday, and we'd encourage anyone who is interested to check that out. So that is our reports from the council tonight, and now we will consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 and our July 2022 financial report.
Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve our expenditures greater than $1,000 dated August 15th, 22nd, and 29th, and the July 2022 financial report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. And now we have a real treat. We are honored to be joined by the Daughters of the American Revolution who are here with us. And so we are excited to hear their Constitution Week presentation, and we turn the time over to you.
Thank you. Mayor Harris and Bountiful City Council members, my name is Christine Schultz, and I am the Constitution Week Chairman for the local Daughters of the American Revolution chapter, and we are called the Seagull Lily chapter. And we have members from all over Davis County. And I'd like to just have the members of my chapter please stand and be recognized. Just a few. Thank you. Wonderful. The DAR is a national volunteer and service organization of women who are direct descendants of those brave patriots who aided in any way or who fought for our independence in the American Revolution. Our headquarters are in Washington, D.C., and occupies a full city block, just a few blocks from the White House. The DAR Constitution Hall is the only structure dedicated to the U.S. Constitution. For more than 100 years, the DAR has worked to fulfill its goals, promoting patriotism, preserving American history, and securing America's future through better education for children. From small towns to large metropolitan areas, DAR members make a difference in their communities. So how did Constitution Week begin? In 1955, President General of the Daughters of the American Revolution, Gertrude S. Caraway, adopted a project to promote the observance of the U.S. Constitution with a Memorial Week, beginning on the anniversary of the signing of this document, September 17th. She asked DAR chapters, committees, and members to study, teach, and discuss the U.S. Constitution. Caraway also encouraged members to invite their governors and mayors to issue proclamations celebrating the Constitution. Constitution Week, September 17th to the 23rd, was officially declared by President Eisenhower on August 2nd, 1956. This was a culmination of a proposal the DAR sent through Senator William F. Noland of California. In closing, we encourage all citizens of Bountiful to read, study, and discuss this precious document. We also ask that, if possible, instead of a proclamation, a message of encouragement to be sent out on the city's Facebook page. And I will talk to, I just thought this would be great for all the citizens of Bountiful to know that we have an official invitation to read and study the Constitution of the United States. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for what your organization stands for and for caring about these important things in our history that affect us so much, that impact us. So really grateful that you could be here tonight and that you braved the rain and that you could join us. So you're invited to stay, but we understand if you need to go. And thank you for being here tonight. Okay, for our next item, we will revisit the discussion that we didn't get to have about recycling, and we'll turn the time over to our Streets Director, Department Director Head, Charles Benson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight, I come before you to discuss a little bit about our recycling program. A little background on it. The recycling program started in December 1st, 2008. Waste Management was our first contractor, so they were contracted to supply the containers, pick up all the recyclable material, and take it to a recovery facility. The contract allowed for the monthly fee per container, as well as all the proceeds from selling the recyclable materials at their recycle center. In 2015, the contract was up and went out for bid, and ACE was awarded the contract at that time. Under the same terms, they supplied the containers, picked up the materials, and sold them at the materials recovery facilities. In 2018, ACE approached the city and wanted to alter the contract. At that time, the market had dropped on the recyclable materials and was costing money to recycle the materials instead of getting a profit from them. So at that time, the council decided that that was an important program and that it wanted to continue to do that program. So it was set up where the city would then take the burden of take back the materials, send them to the recycling center, and we would pay any processing costs or get any proceeds from those sales. And any of those costs were covered from a transfer from the landfill on the interest in their account in there. So we weren't using actual funds from the landfill. It was the interest earned on their savings accounts. It was theirs, how that was covered. So we continued the contract with ACE and extended as it provided. The contract terms now are approaching the end. November 30th is the end of the contract. ACE has proposed another 3-year contract extension with a COLA increase each year. However, ACE is also proposing a 15% increase up front on this. This would change the per rate can from $2.83 to $3.26, or 43 cents a can. That would equate to a $66,000 a year increase. The yearly COLA increase would be based on the Consumer Product Index in May and would not be open to negotiation. So it would be a built-in rate increase every year. So analysis of this, the recycling collection contract with ACE is in a final extension with no option available to extend it. That would make their proposal something we couldn't act upon. According to the city procurement policy, we would need to open it up for bid and go out that way. The competitive bidding process there. With the proposal from ACE and the current conditions in the economy, it's likely that we'll see a significant increase in those collection costs, resulting in a likely rate increase. But there is another option that we've explored. If the city council would like to, Bountiful City could provide the recycling collection process with city staff and equipment. That would entail 2 new employees, 2 collection trucks, and around 13,000 collection cans. So I put together this following spreadsheet that goes a direct comparison between what ACE's cost would be and what our cost projected could be. It looks like right now, if you'd like to look down all that information there, that the city, we could do it for about what we're doing right now. The rates that we're currently charging to the residents. ACE, we're looking at a $70,000 shortfall on that, which would likely lead to some rate increases necessary in there. So for the startup costs, right now I've got 2 spare refuge trucks, and I actually have 4 spare refuge trucks. We could put 2 of them into service for now and run them trucks until the new trucks could be built. I have employees that I use for bumpers on the sanitation that could be used in the service until new employees could be hired and trained. The largest cost would be the containers. So I'm going to explore the possibility of purchasing the containers from ACE, but in past history, when Waste Management came in, it was adamantly they did not want anybody else picking up their cans with their brand on it, which every can is branded ACE out there now. So with looking at that, I've reached out to our current cart supplier, and they have given me some pricing on possibility in there. They're around $70, $71.60 a container delivered here to our shops. This is all based on pricing that I had back. It can change with the current economy, because they're all done out of oil, so it's based on the oil prices, so it could fluctuate a little bit there. But in order to save money, we're looking at using just a black container and just having a black lid for the garbage and a blue lid for the recycled material. That would cut down on my need for inventory and keep everything working that way. We are also, because of the recycling program benefits the landfill, we're looking at possibly using some of their reserve money to finance this up front. And we're looking at also possibly having the money that's in there could be repayments in a 25-year plan for replacing those cans, or however the council decides to do that. So the timing on this, the contract with ACE is going to end in November because of the lead times necessary for either purchasing of the cans or doing other trucks or anything else like that, or sending it out to bid. We're kind of looking for direction from the council as to which way the council would like to go. Could we go out with a contractor now, or we look about taking it in and doing it ourselves? So although no formal action is needed at this time, we would like some direction from the council on if we should look at in-house or look at outside help. Staff believes that we can do it at a more cost-effective manner if we do it in-house. I would entertain any questions you might have.
I want to thank you for considering what options we have. I appreciate that you would think out of the box and think, what options do we have? Could we save money by doing this ourselves? So whatever we decide, I'm grateful that you're open to looking at what options we have. So what questions do you have, council?
Could I ask a question, just a clarifying question about the containers?
Yes.
So you were saying that they would be $71.60 per container?
Yes.
And that's doing it the more economic way with the black can and the blue lid?
Yes.
So it seems if that could be a really large outlay on the front end of this?
Yes.
With the 13,000 residences. How, I just might not be reading this correctly, but I don't see where that amount, I see the recycling carts, the 25.
It's down at the bottom of the spreadsheet,
there
right
it
in
is.
there.
Got it. I just didn't see that down there. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Great. That clarified.
Charles, I had a question. I wanted to check my understanding of the current process. So when ACE collects the recycled material from our residents, they take it to a sorting facility?
Yes.
They deliver it directly to the sorting facility, and the material that can be recycled, then the sorting facility will give us an accounting of that, and then who takes the good material to wherever it's going next? Does it stay with that recycling?
So that is all handled by the recycler.
Okay,
that
and
company.
the items that are deemed, because we're not 100% accurate on our recycling.
Laminated material, yes.
Where does that go? Does it go to Bountiful's landfill, or does it go to some contracted landfill that's different from our landfill?
It goes to a contracted landfill with Rocky Mountain Recycling.
Okay, that matches how I thought I understood it. So if we were to take over doing this, would any of that process change, except for that it would be Bountiful trucks delivering the recycled material to be sorted? Is
Right
any
now,
of-
that would be the only change, that the Bountiful trucks would be picking it up at curbside and delivering it to Rocky Mountain Recycling.
Okay, so none of the items deemed non-recyclable would then flow back into
No, that's
our
all
own
handled
landfill?
part of the contract that we have with Rocky Mountain Recycling.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe along those lines, does ACE have a contract with the recycling facility, or is that our contract, and would that need to be renegotiated?
We took over that contract in 2018, so that is our contract with them. We actually have another year left on that contract with Rocky Mountain Recycling.
Do you, I'm a little concerned about having black cans with blue lids and having people not be well-educated on that it's still recycling and maybe using it in ways that they shouldn't.
That is the way things are moving towards now. ACE has actually started to do that as well
Okay.
with their new cans that are being used.
I have a question, if I may. So how long do we think this upfront cost of 1.6, how long do we think of 1.6 million, how long do we think it would take us to recoup that? Or are we planning to potentially recoup that through this program? Or has that been a conversation?
That's a little conversation. Actually, I laid it out in here. It'd be a 25-year repayment on the cans if that's what we chose to do. I'm saving $100,000 a year, putting aside $100,000 a year for truck replacement, and based on a 7-year rotation on the trucks.
So you're, okay, so would you mind explaining that again? So you're saying,
So on the spreadsheet, I had those two lines in there.
The
On the capital,
100,000
on the
and
capital lines. So the trucks are looking at the $100,000, so that would be a 7-year replacement on that for both trucks. So we'd cycle them through to that to keep them up to date. And then on the cans, divided that out on a 25-year amortization to possibly pay that back at that time to the landfill.
So the $137,000 per year would be like a debt service. I mean, we would be servicing that debt to the landfill, that we'd be borrowing the money to
That's one option that's
implement
open to us right
program.
there.
Okay.
Charles, there was an email. May I, Mayor? Charles, there was an email asking what increase in life expectancy we should look for in our landfill by continuing a recycling program where maybe all of the items are not actually being recycled. Can you talk about what benefit to our landfill our recycling program provides?
So I've got the information for fiscal year '22. So in that last year, we picked up 2,072 tons of recyclable materials and delivered them to Rocky Mountain. We picked up 17,137 tons of material and municipal waste and took that to our landfill. So out of our total that was picked up on curbside, we diverted 11% of the material out of the landfill and into the recycling stream. In 2021, the numbers work out to be 10%. So we're actually improving our diversion a little bit out in there as well. So as to speak to our contamination rate, right now, it looks like our contamination rate is about 20% of non-recyclable materials are getting to the recycle center. I've requested another audit on that, and they're going to get back with me and find out. We'll actually randomly select a truck and go right through that and have the tonnage looked at and what's contaminated and what's recyclable.
Do they know what our chief offenders are for non-recyclables? Probably press board or something like that.
Press board, we get grass in there sometimes. We get fixtures that are not, vacuums that aren't really recyclable, small appliances. liquids we get in there. And that's the unfortunate thing. You get one can with got liquids and stuff like that, it contaminates many cans of worth of material that's in there.
So just a comment that you can either comment back on or not. For me personally, the bottom line, questioning whether or not all of our stuff is getting recycled like we hope it is, and I do think we need to have an ongoing outreach to residents about what can be recycled and what can't.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is everything that leaves our trucks at somebody else's facility is going to be disposed of outside of our landfill. So even those contaminated items that then go to someone else's landfill are still extending the life of our own. So I'm not encouraging people to put additional things in their recycling can.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be careful about what we're putting in there. But the concerns that have been expressed by email are not necessarily my concerns. It all helps us out, in my opinion. So,
Right.
do you want to do this?
This would benefit the citizens of Bountiful to do this.
That's not my question.
Do I want to do this?
Do you want to do this?
I think we should do this. It's going to be a lot of work for us to do this.
Indeed.
But it would be easier just to go out to bid, but I think this is the way we should go.
Okay.
And you believe that because it saves us money, we can have multiple uses for 2 new employees.
Mm-hmm.
Any other main thoughts that why you think?
Well, we can control our own costs this way. We're not built into an automatic raise every time. We can see what we can do to save money in the future. Whereas we're doing this for cost of services, we're not looking to make a profit like a private entity is going to be wanting to do.
Do you have any idea, like if we did this for a few years and then for some reason we wanted to go back out to bid, do you have any idea if an entity would be open to the idea of using our cans and sharing that cost, or?
We were actually approached when they first started this program to purchase the cans ourselves at that point. But we opted not to do that at the time. There are other cities who do own the cans, and the contractor just picks them up. Any kind of service from that, then that city has to take care of the maintenance on those cans.
So can ownership, I guess, would be factored into their bid when they come in with a bid?
Yes.
Any other thoughts, Charles, or staff? Any other thoughts about as we consider this?
And don't really have any more. Gary, do you have anything?
Could I ask a question of staff?
Okay.
I am concerned about the large upfront cost of this program. And then the 7-year and 25-year repayment plan. 2, that we're taking from the windfall profits. I realize that this is and maybe I'm not categorizing this correctly, but an intergovernmental, transfer from one department to another to allow this to have the capital to go forward with this plan. But I am concerned. I am concerned about the large price tag. Will interest be paid? And I know that it's all under the umbrella of the city, but when I think about, I don't know, alternative uses, I see the benefits. I see some benefits, but I also think when, I don't know, maybe someone can help allay this concern, but it is a large price tag when you're looking at an alternative 43-cent increase per can with staying with ACE, or alternatively opening the bidding process. So, I mean, I definitely value the recycling, and am really grateful for, and I do see the benefit that it is extending the life of the landfill, which I think is just an unbelievable asset to the city. But I have significant concerns about the price tag.
May I take a stab at it?
Sure.
For you? So I just did some quick math. So the $66,000 increase annually, the $66,137 times 25 years is $1,653,425. And our upfront cost is $1,637,960. So right there, we're already less expensive, it's a less cost over the course of 25 years, but that also doesn't take into account the $100,000 every 7 years. Am I doing that math correctly? Did you follow my line of thought?
I'm not sure.
Well,
Non-amortized interest-bearing
Yes,
$1.6 million, which is,
that's how I'm looking at
I
it.
don't know.
So, yeah, it's a great question, and this is something that we talked about in a little bit different way, and it might help to look at it this way. At the end of the day, the residents are going to pay the cost of either one of these options. If we bid it out, they'll have to pay more because the rates will have to go up. Our rates will have to go up at some point too, but at this point we don't think they will. So they're gonna pay more money for the other option, either way, or not either way, if we bid it out. So the question then is, do we have the money up front? It's just a cash flow issue. Do we have the money available that we can pay ourselves back so they don't have to pay more money? And the answer is we do in the landfill fund. We have sufficient fund balance. We have about, I want to say, Galen, it's between $7 and $9 million available in the landfill fund that we don't have any intent of using that, for the foreseeable future. So we'll have time to pay ourselves back. That's maybe a more simplistic way to look at it. It's just cash flow.
So can you help just fill in some blanks as to where some of the landfill fund is going right now? Like where, for instance, this $1.6 million would be going? Or has like this, are we just,
So nowhere. It's not
we're banking it
we're
year
just
upon year?
we're not banking $1.6 million per
Right,
year.
I mean,
we
investing, et cetera.
Well, yeah, we just have a balance of funds that are not earmarked for other uses in the foreseeable future from the landfill. And so we're not taking away money that would be available for another use. I think that was some of the concern. Wouldn't be like general fund money that has lots and lots of other competing uses. We're very limited in what we can use our landfill money for. And so this would be an inter-fund transfer, and state law requires that any inter-fund transfer gets paid back with interest. That's a requirement, so it would get paid back with interest.
Sorry, how are those interest rates determined? Is that also
It's also set.
dictated by state law?
It is. It's
that?
essentially the lowest rate available for investing. So it's either the state pool funds, or it's the money at which we're investing it, whichever I think is lower. Is that right, Galen? Yeah.
Mayor, could I make a comment? I think it's important to notice that the landfill traditionally makes money every year. It's one of our healthy enterprise funds. The money that we realize from the landfill comes from a number of sources. Some of those are from users that are outside the city. So in a sense, using landfill funds does subsidize the cost to the resident, because the resident wouldn't be paying all of that profit that goes into the landfill fund. our commercial haulers, for example, are a big revenue source down there. So using that money to help fund our recycling program would be a benefit to the citizens.
As I was thinking over other potential benefits to the city as well, it might be worth noting that this gives Charles additional employees to draw from to plow roads should we get sustained snowstorms, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there are other benefits to the city too besides just what has been laid out so far. So,
One last comment, if I could. The idea of swapping out 13,000 cans is no small task. We watched ACE work their way through the city when they took over the contract, and that's going to take us a minute. But it can be done. It's not impossible.
So how does that work? Does the resident leave their can on the street, they empty it, and then take it with them at that time?
So generally, the way that ACE will do that is they'll have a separate crew come by, they'll disassemble the can, put it on a trailer, and haul it away. Hopefully, we'll have our cans in time. We can deliver a can anytime before ACE picks theirs up, and then it would be available to the residents at that time.
If our cans don't arrive in time, can we utilize their cans until then, or is that a no-go?
That's something we'll have to have a discussion with ACE on and see if that's an option.
But we've done this before when we went from waste management to ACE. There was coordination between the two private haulers and the city to make sure that the cans were removed and replaced. So we do have some experience with this. It's not the funnest thing, but it's certainly doable.
What do you expect the lead time to be to receive the cans once the order's been placed?
The last time I was quoted 6 weeks. So that's why I need to get moving on this as soon as we can. And this will be multiple semi-loads that will be coming in.
So Charles, in 2018, when we were asked to revisit this contract, it's because the bottom had fallen out of the recycling market. In our last budget adoption, we were able to reduce that subsidy because the market has improved for
Correct.
our recyclable materials. What are you and others running sanitation departments seeing in terms of trends there? And do you think that there's any chance that if we saw a stronger market for our recycled garbage, that we could change any of these timelines in terms of the payback to the landfill enterprise fund?
That is always the hope on that. Unfortunately, right now, we're seeing the trends. And last July, we were at even, and actually in August, I actually received a check from Rocky Mountain Recycling. It's only a small check, but it wasn't a large one. It's bounced between our cost between $10 a ton to $35 a ton for the processing charges in the last fiscal year. This year, I'm still looking at about $35 a ton right now. The market has dipped a little bit again. I haven't found out what this next month is going to be at yet. It may go up with a little bit of the downturn in the economy. But these are things that come and go. We're going up and down all the time. So it's just something we need to look at. We do have a little bit of reserve in the recycle account to cover some of these ups and downs.
One advantage of our ability, if we take it in-house, is it will hedge us a little bit from an increase that we would otherwise have to make if the market goes up. So let's assume we renew the contract. We're pretty certain we're going to have to pay more when we bid it out. If on top of that, then the recycling market continues or tanks, could potentially be an even greater increase to residents. This allows us to hedge that a little bit, which we think is positive.
The other question I was thinking about is, in theory, I suppose in the national news, the price of gas is coming down. It hasn't necessarily felt that way when I filled up recently. How much of this increase do we think is due to the cost of fuel, and would our cost of fuel be less because the trucks wouldn't be traveling from as far away? They'd be housed here, servicing here, and do we think we could better control our fuel costs?
Well, we are tax exempt on fuel, so that is a savings for us as well, going that way. It will be a 26-mile round trip to the recycle center from our facility. Right now, it's an 11-mile round trip to our landfill. So there will be a little bit more time involved in that.
Did I understand right that the cans are petroleum product?
Yes.
Okay, so
It's
the,
a resin product, yes.
yeah, so the price of gas does affect,
The price of oil can affect that.
slightly could affect the price of cans.
For purposes of this discussion, Mayor, I guess I would indicate I'm interested in having our city staff move forward with looking at this proposal. While I recognize there's an outlay of costs initially, it seems like this has a better potential to provide an ROI to our residents and be a way to do multiple good things, extend the life of continue our work on extending the life of the landfill, more have our ability to control potential costs, the ability to adjust the program either up or down. Maybe the recycling market will become roaring back and we should do recycling every week instead of every other week. And that this would allow us to be more nimble in doing those things. And so I would personally be in favor of having our staff explore more of these costs and continue those discussions and bring something back.
So it's a work session item. We don't necessarily need a motion, right? So just wanted to kind of get some direction, and so thank you for expressing that. Any other thoughts?
Ditto.
Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. Okay.
Could I just say, I would hope that as we move forward, that the debt servicing would reflect the interest payments, or the interest on the repayment of the loan from the landfill fund, because I don't think it's really reflected in the budget as presented here, and just to see how that might impact. It would be good to see how that would impact the overall differences in revenue versus expenditures versus savings. So that's all.
You bet. I think the go, no-go decision is going to be when we come back with a contract to purchase the cans. That's when the council will have to decide if we pursue the option, and if you choose not to that night, then we would just plan to go out in October, shortly thereafter, to bid. So.
Great. Okay, you comfortable with that direction? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, and now, Charles, we appreciate your help again on this next item to consider approval of the purchase of services from Quality Pro.
Okay, the Streets Department building, Streets Park building down there at 950 South, 200 West. The floors are starting to show their age. They're over 31 years old. The tiles are starting to buckle and come up and become a little bit of a hazard in there. So I considered putting in new flooring, and the bid I got was just to go over what was existing there. Going over loose tiles just didn't seem like a very good option. So looking into it some more, we found out that the best option would probably be to take up the tiles and then just polish the concrete floors, similar to like you see in Smith's or Cal Ranch or Walmart or one of those type of stores there. It'd be much more durable flooring. we get kind of rough on there. We're in there all different types of weather. It gets wet and asphalt on it as well. This looks like it would be a great option to go into that. So we solicited some bids from Quality Pro, Sunwest Flooring, and Stone Touch. Pretty much the exact same process from each one of these vendors. Quality Pro came in at $26,625 on that, the low bid. Funding for this project would be divided between all the departments that use that building. So all those budgets would do that. So staff recommends the approval of the purchase of demolition of the tiles, preparation and refinishing of the concrete floors in the main office building at the streets parks building from Quality Pro for the amount of $26,625. I'd entertain any questions.
I'm just curious to know about, first of all, I think this is a great idea. I'm just curious to know about approximately how many square feet are we talking?
We have approximately 3,550 square feet.
So
in the
brand new
offices.
floor for 26,000, essentially. And that's great. If there are no other questions, I'm happy to make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
I
thought you.
I will do it now, and then you can approve it, or then you can
Awesome.
second. I motion that we consider approval of the purchase of services from Quality Pro to refinish the floor at the street sanitation, storm, and water parks buildings for the amount of $26,625.
Now I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Council.
Okay, Mr. Todd Christensen to help us understand the consideration of adoption of ordinance 2022-08.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, later this week on September 15th, FEMA will adopt new floodplain maps, flood insurance rate maps, to be more specific. And this has been a process that we have been working with FEMA, their state contractor, other communities in the county and Davis County for many years. And towards the end of this process, it is routine for FEMA to check the local floodplain regulations to ensure that they comply with their minimum standards. Most specifically, that your regulations will adopt the new flood insurance rate maps, which ours do automatically. They did give us some additional comments in the review of our ordinance, which is being presented here tonight for adoption. The most significant change is that they recommended we have a more explicit requirement for the lowest floor of new buildings to be elevated 1 foot or more above the flood elevation. And the other changes that, I was going to mention, that is already required by our building code. This would just be a redundant requirement. The other changes are really more about readability and references that made more sense. There were some mistakes, I think, in the way that the existing ordinance referred back to other ordinances. It used some model ordinance designations instead of our city ordinance designations for chapter, section, part, and subpart. So that's really all of the recommended changes that we have that are being, suggested or presented tonight. So the recommendation is that City Council adopt ordinance 2022-08, which adopts the proposed changes to the flood damage prevention ordinance.
If there aren't any questions, are you ready for a motion?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-8 for the flood damage prevention ordinance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. And the next item as well, with Mr. Todd Christensen to consider approval of a challenge cost share agreement with the U.S. Forest Service.
Yes, so as you're well aware, about a year ago, we applied for a NEPA we submitted a NEPA application to the U.S. Forest Service for roughly, well, actually, the application included more than 14 miles of trails, but we are pursuing about 14 miles of trails that were part of this application to the U.S. Forest Service for the expanded trail network and some bridges in the Mueller Park and North Canyon area. We received a formal decision memo from the Forest Service in July, which essentially stated that they support our trails, or most of them that we had put in our application. So since that time, or actually even before we had the decision memo, we had begun working on an agreement, a formal agreement that lays out all of the terms and conditions under which we can build trails and bridges. It explains the responsibilities of the city, the responsibilities of the Forest Service, and has a lot of legal jargon, for lack of a better term. So there is, one thing I want to note is that there is an allowance for some of the trails to be built by U.S. Forest Service crews, if we so choose. We wanted to have that in there because at the time we were having when we bid out a project for a few trails and didn't get any bidders, we thought, well, we asked the Forest Service, well, do you guys have crews that would build trails? And they said, yeah, we do, but we don't know when we could build them. So we still don't really know when that would be, but we just wanted to have that allowance in case it would make sense sometime during the course of when we're building these trails to have them build one or more of the trails. So that's in there in case we choose to move forward with Forest Service crews on any of these trails. We are actively working with the Forest Service and coordinating with them on the processes to get from the phase we're in now to construction of the trails. You know, Brock presented last month, or was it? Yeah, anyway, I think it was the last meeting that a contract with Elite Landscape for them to build the Summerwood Trail. And so we've been in close talks with the Forest Service about the construction of that trail. I have to note, I mean, in the staff report mentions that the latest news on that is they want us to wait until mid-October. So I thought I would bring that up because they want to have, I guess because they haven't worked with Elite Landscape before and they want to be able to do more close monitoring of their work. So their staff is apparently going to be available mid-October. That also gives us time to do the weed control that we've agreed to in our weed mitigation planning. Bridges has a little bit more arduous process where we submit an application or basically a design package for bridges, and then they review that design package. They get back with comments and either in support or I guess in denial of what we propose on the bridges, which would give us the chance to then order bridge and do final design, and then they would have the chance also to, they would need to approve the final design and the contract for the bridge. So there's a little bit of dialogue in the staff report about that, but the recommendation is that City Council authorize the execution of this challenge cost share agreement between the city and the U.S. Forest Service. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you all have.
So Todd, in the proposed contract language with the Forest Service, there's $263,000 and change. All of that is potential if we use a Forest Service crew, or is some of that locked in to costs that the Forest Service might incur as part of this shared project?
The vast majority is if we hire them. There is a smaller portion that is locked in for signs and Well, it's not necessarily locked in, but it's more likely that we would incur those expenses for signs, for some of their staff time, and some of their staff overtime, holiday time. So that's all in there. And if I remember correctly, that amounts to less than $20,000 of the 260, whatever it was.
And
thousand.
change.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure I understood that dollar amount and which part was fully committed and which was only tentatively up for grabs if we use their crew.
Great question. What else, council? Thank you for your work. So I know this is a lot. It can be a complicated process to have these agreements and interactions. So thank you for what you're doing. If there aren't any other questions, are we ready?
Ask a
Sure.
quick question, Mayor.
Yes.
In the agreement is that the Forest Service personnel walk the flag lines and concur with the final plans. Do we anticipate that just their availability for this could put us back beyond construction for trails that we're hoping in 2023? What has our experience been with being able to schedule with them? I mean, I know this is a required part of the contract. I'm just wondering how this might impact our timelines.
You know, that is a good question, and I don't really know, but yes, it's possible. I would have to say yes, it's possible. What we're doing to prevent an issue with that is to get well ahead of the, to let them know well ahead of our schedule for the trails construction, and so that they can schedule their staff to walk the flag lines if they haven't already done so. And that'll be in conjunction with the same approach we're taking for getting contractors, where we intend to issue a bid this fall for construction next year, so that we can get, well ahead of the curve on getting contractors making sure we get a contractor who's available, rather than trying to, like we did this year, bid out projects after the contractor schedules are full and they don't have time to fit us in any of our projects. So we're hoping that, I'm hoping that by doing so and giving the Forest Service a chance to review our plans, and which will include deadlines and schedules this fall, that they can schedule their staff to walk those flag lines before we would be having a contractor mobilize.
So just kind of, again, talking about the timelines, can we issue RFPs for these projects, for the build-out of these trails before the walking of the flag lines happens, or do
Yes.
we can?
Yes.
Okay.
We just can't get their final green light approval for them to start digging construction, beginning construction, until they have approved the flag lines.
Great.
Todd, you see this sheet, scope of work for the various organizations?
That was at the very end of it, right? The back?
Yeah.
Or close to the back, yes.
Do we have enough people to do what it says we're supposed to do on here? Are you personally going to go out and do weed mitigation? It just made me tired to read through our list.
That's a really good question. I would have to say that, that it can be burdensome on staff. I've talked with Brock specifically about the weed mitigation, and he thinks that he can do it on staff. And I suggested, if it gets to be too burdensome, we can contract out the weed control. The Forest Service will enforce their standards, their trail construction standards, but they enforce them on Bountiful City, not the contractor, because their agreement is with Bountiful City. And so we intend to inspect and do quality control on the trails. And the way that we intend to do that is by hiring someone to do that.
Okay.
Which will help with, being, some of that burden that would otherwise take a lot of staff time. I mean, it takes a lot of time sometimes just to get up into the mountains to look at a part of a trail. You know what I'm saying?
Would you hire a contractor or an employee?
We would hire a contractor, and we've already gone through a pre-qualification process for that.
Can volunteers do any of the weed mitigation work, or is it of a technical nature that it needs to be someone with training and certifications?
In the early part of the year, there's a window where hand pulling is appropriate, and that's where we intend to use volunteers for service days, service projects to do weed control, to help with that. But they cannot, we wouldn't have volunteers do chemical application.
A lot of exciting stuff coming and a lot of work. Thanks.
Yeah, my
If
pleasure.
there aren't further questions, is anyone ready?
Love to make a motion that we approve the challenge cost share agreement with the U.S. Forest Service for the building of trails and bridges.
Second,
Second.
third.
Fourth.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you so much.
Very much.
Okay, and now it's Police Chief Ed Beeler to consider approval of the purchase of 2 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles.
Mayor and members of the council, I'm here to request approval for the purchase of 3 vehicles. So I noticed that on the agenda, it does show 2 with that dollar amount that is shown, but
Thank you for the
hopefully
correction.
maybe you noticed in my staff report that I turned in that it actually shows 3 vehicles in there for the
Thank
same
you.
amount that is on the agenda. So just be aware of that. The vehicles that we're here to request approval for are 2 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles assigned to the Patrol Division. The Interceptors will be purchased locally at Performance Automotive at the price of $42,313 apiece. Performance Automotive is not a dealer on the state contract site. However, the 2 places, Young Automotive Group and Ken Garf, are on the state contract site, and Performance Automotive came in cheaper than both of those places. The third vehicle is a Ford Explorer assigned to the Detective Division, the POP unit. And you may recall that last year I came and requested approval to replace this exact same vehicle that I'm here for tonight. We made an order on a new Jeep Cherokee, and because of the trouble in getting vehicles, that vehicle was never made. Therefore, they never delivered to us, and now we have to go through this process again. Because we did not have a good experience with the Jeep, and they could not give us a price appropriate for right now, we're not going with the Jeep, and we're going to go for a Ford Explorer again. That vehicle is $36,106, again purchased from Performance Automotive. Same thing as before, they're not on the state bid, but they were the lowest price out of the bids that we were able to get. We would anticipate selling 3 vehicles, likely to be the following: a 2014 Jeep Cherokee, a 2016 Dodge Charger, and a 2017 Dodge Charger. A couple of things just real quick to be aware of. We're not getting Dodge Chargers this year because we could not get a price. They're saying that they're not going to be able to get us pricing until late October at the earliest. And Dodge Chargers are no longer going to be made as a police vehicle. So going forward, we don't have that as an option. Right now, we're also unsure what vehicles for next year are going to be available for us to get as well. The Ford Interceptor is a police vehicle with better suspension and brakes and transmission and all that sort of stuff. It is significantly more expensive than a Dodge Charger. But we don't have a whole lot of choices. We also know, based on experience in selling back our vehicles, that you do get more money selling a 4x4 than our Chargers anyway. So we think that the more that we're paying for the Interceptor will be negated by being able to sell it at its end of life for more money as well.
Chief, could you just real briefly mention the equipment issue that we have with vehicles.
And that was another thing that I had brought up to Gary on wanting to go to a Explorer type vehicle anyway, a utility vehicle is, when I started, in the trunk of our car, we would have some cones and some flares and a first aid kit. That's not the case anymore. We have so much equipment in there for people to get to something that's not on the very top. You have to take everything out. We have shields, ballistic shields, of course, all the regular stuff, cones and flares and first aid kits. Several officers have different types of guns, so a less lethal munition gun, and just all that stuff is taking up a lot of space that we just don't have room for. It's becoming very difficult to pack all that stuff in there. So we did already make the request to purchase the vehicle from Performance Ford because we have to get on their list to get on the build list soon as the bids came out. We placed the order. So we already have placed the order. If you do not approve these vehicles tonight, we would easily be able to turn that back and they would be easily be able to sell our vehicles to somebody else. So that's not a problem if you don't approve it, but I do want you to know that we already have placed the order to get on the build list. It usually takes, the last time that we were here to get vehicles was maybe 2 months ago, or maybe it was just, I think it was in July, and we just found out that they're on the build list. So it's not even being built yet, but we at least have a build order date. So I respectfully request your approval to purchase those 3 police vehicles in the amount of $120,732. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Chief, I have a couple of questions. Is there, with the move to the Interceptors from the Chargers, does that require additional training for our officers? And just wondering, how long do you anticipate, kind of through attrition, it will take to phase out the Chargers and move into Interceptors or whatever else is coming down the pike?
It wouldn't require any specialized training, but we do EVO training periodically anyway, so we would be using these vehicles to get used to them. But even when you're in the police academy and you come back out, you go through their EVO process, you're using whatever cars they happen to have, some old Crown Vics, type of thing, so we would not need any extra training. And then to get through all of our Dodge Chargers, well, we just bought some last year, so we're probably five-ish years away from those vehicles running their end of life, depending on how much they're used. We try to do a 5-year, 100,000 mile-ish type, 90,000 mile type range.
Thanks. I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of the 3 police vehicles for a total of $120,732.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. Thank you,
Thanks.
Chief.
We have one more to go as soon as we get some pricing, so we'll be back another time.
We'll look forward to it. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Craig Christensen from our Water Department to consider approval of Resolution 2022-15.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me here this evening to speak about the Water Conservation Plan. Under State Code 73-10-32, that requires every public water system to have a water conservation plan put in place, and every 5 years that needs to be revamped, updated, and resubmitted to the state, the Division of Natural Resources. So the last time we did this was in 2017. So it's our time for renewal this year by the end of 22. The plan must contain certain things in it to conform to the rule. A few of those items are information about the water system, the metered tiering that we have, any historical data as far as production and consumption, and Gallons per capita day is a big thing for them. And what we have as far as goals set to help the city decrease water over time. This plan has been updated and revamped with new goals and new visions put in there, new information as far as data for consumption and production. This had to be sent into the Division of Natural Resources for their approval first to make sure that it conformed to the rule. And it has also been seen by the appropriate staff here at the Bountiful City. As far as a significant impact for this, if we didn't have this plan put in place, they can put restrictions down and they can make us a water system that is not in compliance. And so this is one of the things that we need to keep and maintain and have as our system have this plan in our system available for people to see and see what we're trying to do here. As far as this goes, staff would recommend that after the appropriate time for a public comment period, and this has been out for public notice on the website and the appropriate spots that it needs to be for the 14 days. But it would be staff recommendation that City Council approve the resolution 2022-15 adopting the updated water conservation plan, obviously after the appropriate public comment period, but I would entertain any questions if council or mayor has any right now.
Can you remind me what the time frame is that we're looking at for changing out our ability to have a smart water system for our parks and our facilities?
It's my understanding that Brock is actually working on that right now, getting some bids put in place. We've had some conversations about this in staff meetings and a few various other places that they are in the process of trying to get that changed out. And I believe it's within the next year or two that they would like to have things changed out. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're actually, speak of the devil, Brock and Lloyd and I are meeting tomorrow to discuss the procurement process that we need to go through to find a vendor.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions about this?
This was more just a curiosity question on my part, Craig.
Yes.
Page 5 of the plan, the city's divided into zones, and there's a portion of the city that we are not the culinary water provider for. And so this was just a kind of a question I wanted to just ask for my own knowledge base. Is that the portion of the city that was annexed in the mid-1990s, and so was the water was provided by a different water provider because it was unincorporated Davis County? Is that the reason that we're not the provider there?
Yeah, so that's the South Davis water area, and that's why on that there's the two maps there, and the one shows that the actual border of Bountiful, but that is break it up to, this is the actual service area of Bountiful, and South Davis does have to do their own water conservation plan. And so we don't put that in there as part of ours. They are recognized in there as part of ours because they are part of Bountiful, but they have to submit their own plan for that. As far as the other portions, Bountiful Irrigation and the other providers for irrigation there, they're not supplied by us again, but they're also part of it. A big portion of that would be, having those meters installed for the irrigation by that allotted time, so.
When that annexation happened, why didn't we take over being that water supplier? Is it because there was just longstanding water contracts in place already to do that? Or it just seems odd that.
I'm not 100%. So since I've started here 16 years ago, it's always kind of been on the back burner. Hey, this is one of those things that maybe one day we could purchase the South Davis water. I'm not 100% why it hasn't, or I don't know that way, but this is just things that I've always been talked about by my predecessors.
And if that's a really long GWIS question, because it was a GWIS question, you can tell me the answer offline later.
I'll try and give you the Reader's Digest version. A few years ago when Linford Beckstrand, the the administrator for South Davis Water retired, there was some discussion about Bountiful City taking, purchasing their system. And I believe that their board rejected that idea that time.
Okay, thank you for that Reader's Digest version.
Craig, I have a question, just in the spirit of water conservation, and I appreciate your time and efforts in managing our water, making sure we have water, but also in this report and making sure that we have water in the future. We started 2022 with a lot of talk and focus on water conservation and what we can do to reduce water use this year. How have we done so far this year, and how is our water supply today? And I'm grateful for the rain tonight, but kind of tell us how our water wells are doing, and if you can, and our water supply, like Mueller Canyon and that sort of thing, the
sure.
flow, such. Thanks.
I actually did bring some numbers with me that kind of go over from about 2017 to currently. And some of this is, I have this in acre feet. That's just a lot easier to report in acre feet than million gallons. And so, the production in 2017, so this is our wells and our treatment plant. And at the time it was our old treatment plant. It's not the new one that we have online now. But we produced 5,085 acre feet. And an acre foot is 325,851 gallons. And so it's just, like I said, it's easier to just report acre feet that way. So that's a pretty large number. In 2018, we had 5112. In 2019, we produced 5515. And in 2020, we went down to 4459. 21, we had 3323. And as of the end of August of this year, we have produced 2321. So as far as water conservation goes, we have started to get that curve down where we are conserving water, we are producing less, so we're not putting a very large strain on our wells. We haven't noticed any well drawdowns like we did last year and the previous years. The drawdown is when that level, you're using so much, pulling so much resource out of that and dropping that down. So that causes air and cavitation in the line. And part of this is that we've been installing those VFDs as well. And so we're able to better utilize the pump curves, and instead of having 1,200 gallons a minute produced, it filling a reservoir up really fast. We're able to maintain reservoirs and keep 300, 400 gallons a minute pumping through those versus all the way. And so we're trying to utilize our wells better that way, so as we're saving energy and pumping costs that way as well. But as far as the treatment plant, in 2017 we produced 851 acre feet. In 2018 the treatment plant was under construction, getting that new treatment plant in there, and so that did not produce any that year. The first year we had the new plant online, we did 1,014 acre feet production. 2020, 902 acre feet. In 21, we had 508 acre feet produced. And this year, currently, as of the end of August, 853 acre feet. So the difference in snow totals there and the runoff that's coming down off the mountain and the available water that we're able to produce. We still have some runoff coming down from the canyon. It's ranging between 150 to 200 gallons a minute, but we've got an upper well that we're able to help substitute that. If you're running about 150 gallons a minute, that's just pretty much enough to keep the filters wet and just in operation, so you don't have to shut those off. And with that upper well running, we're able to keep those and produce the 400 gallons a minute. In times like this, when it does rain, we get on our SCADA and we can bump that up and change the flows to 600, 650 gallons a minute. And then when it starts tapering off, we can taper that back down to that 400 again, so we can utilize whatever's coming down. And as far as our Weber Basin, I know that we had talked about that previously. We are contracted with Weber Basin to buy 1,000 acre feet of culinary water from them every year. And this year, we were cut to 85%. So they reduced our quantity, and because some of it gets used for irrigation purposes, that they cut it a little bit more that way. And we are currently at 639 acre feet. And so we still have a good allotment left to finish off the year. But we always try to get that around that 1,000 acre feet, because we buy it for 1,000, and if you don't utilize it, it's not, you don't get to roll it over to next year, so.
Thank you. If there aren't any other questions, oh, okay, looks
Yes,
like
a
we have
couple
another.
questions. First of all, I did want to say thank you so much for getting this report to us so early. I really appreciated digging through this and seeing so much information, and thank you for bringing the numbers tonight, too. It's been really helpful. I had a couple of questions. With the loss on page 9,
The different percentages there, yeah.
so last year we had a fairly high loss rate, and I was just wondering, is there something that explains that particular spike and in 2019, and how are we doing on like kind of proactively preventing these high loss levels?
So a part of this, these numbers come from the consumption report that I have to submit to the state every year. And so they have different variables in there. But as far as that 24.01% loss, that could be, there are these little factors, leaks, flushing, things of that nature. So with us installing new main lines, part of that is that we need to disinfect those lines, and you have to do that by putting chlorine into those lines. You have to let it sit for 24 hours, and they call it a bake, and then you have to flush that line out until you have whatever is the residual in your system. And so you don't want to high dose and super high dose the customers that are there before you start tying over the services. And so with us trying to replace between 3 and 3.5 miles of pipe a year, we have to use a lot more of that water in those flushing situations to get those lines disinfected properly. And if a bacteria sample, because after you chlorinate it, you have to pull a bacteria sample before you do any other work. If that sample comes back that it's chloroform positive, then you got to do that process again to make sure that it's clear. And sometimes there's construction debris that gets in those lines, unbeknownst to whoever's installing the line. You always try your best to do what you can to avoid that, but there are those situations where we have to use more, and we have had areas that have had substantial leaks in those areas, and that also contributes to what we have for losses. And that's why we try to get that main line replaced on those streets as well.
So would you say it is the main line replacement issues and attendant to that is related most closely to the loss?
I think for last year, yes. Yeah. We had a couple jobs that we had to flush a couple more times. And we had some bigger significant leaks on some pump lines on those pump lines, they are a larger size line that they drop a lot more water out when they have a main line break on them, because you can get holes in those, the size of a skateboard. But
Is the higher loss in 19 attributable to the fire at the, near the B?
Yeah, those are also contributed to it because they're unmetered situations, and so when the fire department gets on there, they're not metered, and so that's just considered a loss.
Thank you. Yeah, any other
Do you mind
questions
if I
about the
ask?
water plan? Sure.
One more. On page 14, kind of looking at the future, the prospective, looking ahead. And love all of the goals that are laid out in this. But kind of as we prospectively look forward, just this last paragraph where it says we're going to have the need to increase water production or search for alternative sources to continue to provide for the increase of the city's population. I was just, so looking at how the water, how we're getting our water right now and the breakdown with the wells, the treatment plant, and the basin. What are some areas that you're looking at? Because the basin looks like it's, they have the ability to restrict us. And the wells, we have a finite number. And the creek, we're subject to Mother Nature. Where do you see the most viable options? And do you feel like as a city we need to be moving proactively toward nailing down contracts or seeking out what that might look like with water providers? I mean, just kind of looking into the future.
Yeah.
How can we best prepare for that
Yeah.
future where you say we do need to look for alternative sources?
Yeah, so we also can purchase from South Davis Water as well. They have X amount of wells that they can use and produce water. There's no set contract as far as how much we can purchase from them. They just have it at a dollar amount per acre foot, and that we can purchase through our, we have a meter at our 3100 South Booster Station. So it's kind of a more suited for the south side of town versus the north side of town. We've been in some conversations about just upgrading storage. And so the storage capacity could increase to help better service these areas. And combine that with the wells and keeping our VFDs and not having our drawdown levels. Those are some factors that we've thought about. And there's even potential to poke new holes in the ground to try to find new areas that have a spot that we could put a well on. That's one of a major thing that could happen that way too.
Can I make a comment on that? We have some low-hanging fruit. Number one is conservation. We do have some areas of town that are very high in their consumption, and we need to step up our game for helping people recognize what is the efficient use of water and how they can better use water on their properties. But we also have some underutilized sources. We have a couple of wells that we don't run because they have some water quality issues. So we can develop some programs and some projects to remedy those water quality problems and bring that water into the system. Over the last few years, we haven't used the Viewmont well very much at all. And we're starting to use that one more and more. So I would say that there are at least 3 wells that have been not used or drastically underused in the last 20 plus years. So it's not like we're running out of water. We have a lot of water. But the low-hanging fruit is really to help our residents manage their water use better.
Were you done? Can I add, can I add to that? We talked at budget meeting, about creating a new pricing tier for the users that Lloyd has just talked about. Where do we stand on that?
We need to get on that. We've conversated about it. We haven't really done a whole lot more than conversating about it. There are some cities out there that have started to do kind of that same situation that we've been talking about, and we're looking into contacting them and seeing how they went about their process. And so we can get that moving.
Okay.
That is something that is on the radar for sure.
Are we currently in danger of conserving our way into a financial crisis?
Not currently, but there's always that possibility.
Okay. And just a comment, I think Bountiful has had more trouble in the past justifying the water resources that we have rather than trying to locate new resources, as the state has required accountability for what we do with the water rights that we own. So it's not that we're necessarily hurting for water. It's that, as Lloyd said, there's some low-hanging fruit that we can develop or redevelop to fill future needs, and we can get folks to conserve.
So with that low-hanging fruit that you both are referencing, the high utilizers and potentially making rate structure adjustments there, in the report, you referenced that it would be ideal to have those adjustments put in place prior to the 2023 budgeting cycle. So what does that look like? When do we need, what is our timeline then for moving rate structure adjustments forward so we have that in place, if that's what we choose to do for that 2023 budget cycle?
Well, we'd have to.
That question makes sense.
Yeah, it'd kind of be like what we were just talking about with Councilman Higginson. And that would be getting that ball rolling, getting those tiers figured out. Do we want to add another tier like we had kind of talked about previously? Do we want to revamp our tiers, make it not hurt, but start getting the utilization down a little bit further than what it is on the top tier? Or do we just want to add that tier on top of it? Those other cities with their tiers, look into those and see how they did it. And I think that it's a thing that we could possibly have done before that budget year gets implemented, and we'd have to go through the motions that way as far as what needs to be done with council.
Thank you.
It's such an important topic. Thank you. That's a really important discussion. Thanks for the report. If there are any other questions about this, is the council ready for a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion. I propose that we approve resolution 2022-15, which updates our water conservation plan. Is that enough, or do I need to give the official title?
Can I just interject real quick?
Oh.
This wasn't on the agenda, so it's not your fault. This is a public hearing, so we need to open it up to a public hearing
Yeah,
before
sorry,
we can.
that's my fault.
Sorry about that. We
yeah.
didn't get it on. It was noticed as a public hearing, but it's not on the actual agenda.
That's right, yes. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Segura-Barr. We'll come right back to that. And now, as noticed, we will open this up as a public hearing to see if anyone would like to speak to this issue. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. And now, if you're willing to make that motion, Councilwoman.
I propose that we adopt the Bountiful City Water Conservation Plan, which was drafted on August 5th, 2022, and that will have a duration of 5 years.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you so much, Craig. Now we'll turn the time over to Mr. Alan West, our Director of the IT Department, to consider approval of the Munis Software Maintenance Annual Contract Renewal.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, have a redo. Every year come in to get a approval for the software maintenance contract with Munis or Tyler Technology Software. About 10 years ago, we installed this software. It runs all of our financials and utility billing and several other programs. One note in here is that we had a little challenge with some technical support about September to December. We requested an adjustment based on the challenges that we had, and there's a $10,000 credit for this year. So We're here to recommend that the council approve the annual Tyler Technology Software Maintenance Contract for $81,314.97.
So moved?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much, Alan. And now we will move to your next item, that is to consider approval of the annual renewal of the Microsoft Office 365 licensing.
Thank you again. A couple years ago, we implemented the Office 365 product. We moved everything off of a in-house Microsoft Exchange server that we'd maintained for several years. One of the biggest challenges at that time was keeping everybody's Office suite software up to date. Every few years, we'd have to just renew it or essentially buy it again. So one of the big advantages of having everybody on Office 365 is as they do standard Microsoft updates on their PCs, it will put the latest version of whatever product they're on, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So we've recognized a lot of good advantages for moving to Office 365, and so the annual renewal for this is $26,174.40.
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
You.
Excellent. Thank you for your patience too, Alan. Okay, Mr. Lloyd Cheney, our engineer, to consider approval of the installation of a no parking zone.
Thank you, Mayor. About 3 weeks ago, the Traffic Safety Committee met, and we reviewed 5 items. From that meeting, only one of the items has moved to your purview, and that is the request for a no parking zone on 4th South, just on the east side of Main Street. Bountiful Irrigation has a manhole at that location that has what they call a pressure reducing valve in it, and during the irrigating season, they need to get in there and do some regular work. That's pretty important because their system operates on a much higher pressure than, say, our culinary system. And if they happen to have a problem in there, it can really create some havoc around town when a line blows up over higher pressure. It has a pretty adverse effect on our infrastructure. So it seemed logical to me that we have a little skin in the game to help them maintain access to their infrastructure. In addition, this is kind of in a marginal place for parking on street anyway. The state law prohibits parking within 20 feet of a crosswalk, and this particular manhole is about 25 feet from the crosswalk on the south side of the street. You can see in the picture, there's a car parked there. The manhole is about where the rear tire is. So it's not really a great place anyway. The building is really close to the side of the road, and the visibility from the parking on the west side of those buildings, which are on the east side of Main Street, if that makes sense, is really limited. It's hard to see traffic that is turning to go eastbound on 400 South. It's hard to see them coming up the street as you're exiting that parking area. So this would help to improve visibility at this location. And again, it comes at the expense of one fairly marginal parking space. The Traffic Safety Committee did recommend that the City Council approve this installation, and Mr. Benson was good enough to provide an estimate for the cost to implement this of about $140 for the sign and the paint. There is some ongoing expense to maintain the paint on the curb. We do install those as a pair, signage and red paint, just because red painted curb is a little hard to see when it's buried under 2 feet of snow. We'll hope that we have some snow to cover up our curb. So it's the committee's recommendation that the City Council approve this installation, and there was one additional recommendation from the committee that we coordinate with the businesses in the area to let them know that this is going to have a little impact on the parking in the area, but it is for a good cause.
Make a motion to approve as recommended.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And now to consider approval of Resolution 2022-17 and construction of the extension of Canyon Creek Drive. Mr. Lloyd Cheney.
Thank you. We have a couple of housekeeping items on our North Canyon Trailhead project, the first of which is the adoption of Resolution 2022-17, which is an amendment to the prior agreement with Davis County for reimbursement on that project. The simple summary of it is that we're extending the construction date to the end of June of next year, just to allow the project to be built. We've run past the original completion date, which was July of this year. So we're asking the council to adopt the resolution, which authorizes the change in the contract. That will then go to the county, who will consider the adoption, or the change to the agreement also. The second item is requesting the council's approval for the design grade of the extension of the road farther up the canyon. Currently, our code limits the centerline grade of streets to 12% without specific approval by the council. The proposed grade does match the centerline grade of Canyon Creek as it exists now, so it's just literally a logical extension of what's already there. And it does fit within the parameters of approval by the council, because it's less than 200 feet and is less than 15% in slope. So I would recommend that the council approve the construction of the extension of Canyon Creek Drive as designed at 13.52%.
And if I can just add on the two, because there's two items that are related but different, whenever there is a motion, if we can just do them separately, that would be great. Thank you.
I would move for the approval of,
Microphone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I would like to make a motion that we amend the interlocal agreement with Davis County to extend the project completion date to June 30th, 2023, and Resolution 2022-17.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you so much. And now we'll turn the time over to.
We have to do a second.
B.
I would also, I'll make a second motion.
Great.
To approve the street grades that exceed 12% on the Canyon Creek Drive, as it relates to section 6-2-122 to a slope of 13.52%. Does that
Second.
cover it?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks for keeping me on track. Okay, we will now turn the time over to Mr. Galen Rasmussen, our Assistant City Manager, to consider approval of Resolution 2022-16.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. This is a housekeeping item in its own way as well. There comes a time when you think you have the budget document just exactly where it needs to go, and we had several things that were discussed back and forth at the various committees, and then you get to the final time when you adopt it. One of those things that got left in there was a version of the cemetery rates and fees. It was a discussion item in the committees and still remained in there. And so just in the spirit of full transparency and making sure the document is as complete as possible, we're recommending that the council adopt Resolution 2022-16 that provides for a corrected cemetery fee schedule, which is part of that resolution, just so that that is available to the public.
Galen, will this impact your annual award?
No, no.
Okay.
Because it's been included.
If so, I'd just rather leave it like it is.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't, because they go back to the website to see what's there as well, and it'll be corrected there.
Perfect. Mayor,
just
I'd be
gonna
happy to make
ask
a
if-
motion. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask if we could move this to October, because I prefer all cemetery resolutions take place in October.
Especially the end of October.
Were you,
I move that we table this item till October. Please don't second that motion.
I'd like to make a substitute motion
Oh.
that we approve Resolution 2022-16.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.